Well, welcome to the 700 Club. We're going through locusts, dust storms, riots. It's like we're living in Bible days, and now we're back to the plague. Coronavirus cases have now hit a new record for a single day, 40,000 new cases. Hotspots are breaking out in Arizona, Texas, and Florida, and the majority of new cases now among people under the age of 45.
Wearing masks could save thousands of lives, so why is resistance to wearing them heating up? Jennifer Wishon has the story.
With states like Texas and Florida posting record numbers of cases this week, health officials urge Americans to continue taking precautions. Unlike the early months of the pandemic, the majority of new cases are in younger people under the age of 45. Most people who die from the virus are over age 80. But the fear is asymptomatic young people will pass it to older Americans.
Usually when we see a spike in positive cases, 2 weeks later, we often see an increase in hospitalizations. 4 weeks later is when we see a jump in deaths.
And the CDC estimates that 20 million Americans have been infected, roughly 10 times as many as have been confirmed. Texas reported more than 17,000 new cases in the last 3 days and a record of nearly 5,000 hospitalizations. Governor Greg Abbott is now pausing the Lone Star State's reopening and halting elective surgeries in the state's biggest counties. Florida is in a similar situation, reporting more than 114,000 cases total. But Governor Ron DeSantis says part of the uptick is due to increased testing.
This is mass testing regardless of symptoms.
Wearing masks inside businesses is only mandatory in a handful of states, but health experts say they're a necessary tool for containing the spread of COVID. A new model from the University of Washington suggests wearing masks could save as many as 33,000 lives by autumn. But in new hotspots like Arizona, Texas, and Florida, resistance to masks is heating up.
Are you going to allow the government to tell you you have to wear a mask?
It's our bodies. It's our choice whether we're going to wear them, not wear them. You guys are overstepping your boundaries 100%.
For some reason, masks have become political, but the research is clear and overwhelming. Masks prevent transmission by 50%. So the overwhelming message is if you go out and you can't social distance, wear a mask.
Teams from the CDC are deploying to hard-hit areas to trace new infections and reinforce protective measures, a strategy officials say helped slow new infections in North Carolina and Alabama. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News.
Well, the bad news on this is we still are flying blind in the middle of this plague. We don't know the ultimate effects of the virus. Does it lead to long-term lung damage? Does it lead to other organ damage? And we still don't know. So the best thing to do in this plague is stay away from it and not get it. If a mask can help you not contract this horrible disease, then by all means, please use it when you're out in public. You don't have to wear it all the time. You don't have to wear it when you're driving a car. You don't have to wear it in your home. But when you go out to public places, I encourage you, please take whatever measures you can to avoid getting this disease. In other news, the Trump administration has gone to the Supreme Court asking it to overturn Obamacare. John Jessup has that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
That's right, Gordon. The administration made its case in a legal brief filed Thursday in a case brought by 20 states led by Republicans, which is trying to completely invalidate the law. The justices will hear oral arguments as soon as October, just before the presidential election. Two lower courts have ruled that the Obamacare individual mandate is unconstitutional after the 2017 Republican Congress eliminated it. Both courts questioned the entire law without the mandate. California and 19 other states led by Democrats are defending the law. Well, the High Court gave President Trump a victory Thursday, ruling 7-2 in favor of allowing the administration to quickly deport some asylum seekers instead of letting them make their cases to a federal judge. The decision will apply to those picked up near the border who fail an initial asylum screening. The ACLU quickly protested the decision, saying it will make it more difficult to question the actions of immigration officials at the border. Well, after days of high-level meetings, the White House is still undecided over whether to back Israel's annexation plan for parts of biblical Judea and Samaria, known as the West Bank. As Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem, the stakes for Israel and the Middle East are high.
After his White House meetings, U.S. Ambassador to Israel David Friedman will continue discussions back in Israel. He will work on the maps to define the area for annexation, as laid out in President Trump's peace plan. But many Israelis say the word annexation is a misnomer.
It's not an annexation, it's applying the Israel law over this area.
Meir Deutsch of the Israeli settler organization Ragavim says they need to know what declaring sovereignty over 30% of Judea and Samaria means for a future Palestinian state that could be located in the other 70% of the area.
If the only way of Israel applying sovereignty over this area is a creation of a terrorist state in the land of Israel, we are against applying the law over this area. However, if this is not part of a creation of a terrorist state, so we're definitely for it.
Less than 5 miles from Jerusalem is Ma'ale Adumim, an Israeli city of nearly 40,000 residents that would likely be annexed.
In the city, Bichah, people are very interested. They want the annexation.
But Yossi Dagan, head of the Shomron Regional Council, says while Trump is the best president ever for Israel, the Jewish state can't go against the command of God.
Eretz Israel. The land of Israel is a gift from the Holy One, blessed be He, to the people of Israel. But this is not just a gift. It's not just a promise of prophecy and the prophets. It's also a command. We have no right to relinquish 1 centimeter of the land of Israel. No one has the right to demand that we give up 1 centimeter.
Around 200 House Democrats sent a letter to President Trump opposing the annexation. The UN Secretary General warned against Israel extending its sovereignty over the area as early as July 1st.
Annexation would constitute the most serious violation of international law, grievously harm the prospect of a two-state solution.
Jordan's King Abdullah also says annexation is unacceptable, and the Palestinian Authority has warned violence will break out if it happens. But many Christian supporters of Israel also believe the plan should go forward, with one saying it's not annexation, it's Israel's land.
I don't know anything about an annexation plan being drawn up. I know about a sovereignty plan. This is the Bible land, and that the Bible is not illegal.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Thank you, Chris. Gordon, back to you.
Well, this is, in my opinion, it's recognizing what's the reality on the ground. We talk a lot about settlements, but these are actually cities. These are places that you have houses, you have schools, you have businesses. These are Jewish areas. And so by Israel saying we're going to annex or we're going to extend sovereignty over them, well, that's been the reality on the ground for a long time. And it's been part of the Israeli plan. We're going to establish settlements in the West Bank, and over time, we're going to take that territory. Keep in mind this, and it's something that in all of the history and all the turmoil today, you lose sight of. And you can sum it up in a phrase. The Palestinians have never missed an opportunity to miss an opportunity. How many times was it extended to them to establish their own state? And you go back to the British Mandate. You can go back to the League of Nations and what happened in San Remo back in 1920. You can go back to that period of time. They have never actually tried to establish a state. There is a very long history here where they're motivated by hatred of Israel. It is anti-Semitism. They have said for decades, let us drive Israel into the sea. They do not want a Jewish state in the Middle East at all. And that's been the motivating factor. And that's why you don't see a Palestinian state. How many times does Israel have to offer and be refused? And the most significant one being right after the Six-Day War, where they literally offered back the entire West Bank, including Jerusalem, in order to have peace. And that offer was refused by all the Arab states in the famous 3 no's, no negotiation, no peace. They're not going to do this. So we shouldn't be surprised that the Palestinians are going to express anger and they're going to riot. They're going to declare another intifada. They're going to do all of these things. But the reality on the ground is these are areas with Jewish settlements, and so Israel is going to extend sovereignty over it. And here's the other reality. We're seeing literally Judah being restored to Israel. These are ancient lands, well described in the Bible. They were Jewish 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, and here we are in 2020, and they're becoming Jewish again.